Okay, would everybody please be seated? Would everybody please silence your phones? Could we shut the door, please? And just our monthly reminder to everybody who's speaking today, board members, presenters, that we have sign language interpreters. I think they're actually new sign language interpreters today. So please speak clearly into the microphone so that they have time to communicate properly. And with that, I will stop talking. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Before we start the Finance Committee, I wanted to just take a few minutes, moments, I should say, to acknowledge our new board member, Judge Gloria Chevrolet, who was appointed by Governor Pritzker. And they put some great notes down here in terms of her incredible career in public service. But I had an opportunity yesterday to spend some time with her. And let me just say this kind of sums up, I think, the judge. She spent most of her time on the bench at Harrison and Kedzie. Anyone who knows the city knows that community. She then spent the other part of it at 51st and Wentworth, in an area that I grew up. And while she could retire and live an incredible life, she's decided to stay on the battlefield and continue to be a public servant. So I won't read through all of her accomplishments. I would advise those of you who don't know her, look her up. You want to go back and see what was happening during Mayor Washington days, you will see her name. If you want to talk about someone who was knocking on doors out in the streets, fighting for people, you will see her name. So I won't read through all of it. I'm going to challenge you to go online, because everything's online today, and learn a little bit about our history. I think so often we tend to forget whose shoulders we stand on and those who came before us. It was interesting talking with her yesterday in Dorval, when Dorval was hired at CTA as an attorney out of Howard University. He was assigned to work with the judge. She was already here in an executive role position, so she's sort of come full circle to some extent, but I'm honored to have her on the board. I want to thank the governor. We've got, as you know, last month, Reverend Jakes, and now the judge is joining us, so I'm excited to have her on board. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, and again, challenge you to go and look up her history, because she has been on the battlefield fighting for people, communities throughout this city for a long time. And again, I want to just say welcome, and look forward to serving with you on the board.
Words, and I look forward to my new phase of public service.
All right, excellent. With that said, I'm going to turn it over now to Director Silva.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I would like to call to order the October 10th, 2019 meeting of the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. Will the Secretary call the roll, please?
Yes, Reverend Miller.
Here.
Director Irvine.
Here.
Director Peterson. Reverend Jakes. Chairman Silva.
Here.
And Judge Chevrolet, you're not on this committee yet. You'll be put out in about a half an hour, but you're certainly welcome to be here and ask questions and participate. We have a quorum with 5 members present. Oh, let the record show that Director Alvaro Rosales will not be here today.
Our first order of business is the approval of the committee minutes of September 11th, 2019. May I have a motion to approve?
Second.
Will the Secretary call the roll?
Yes, Reverend Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Irvine.
Yes.
Reverend Jakes.
Abstain.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Chairman Silva.
Yes.
That motion to approve the minutes passes with 4 yes votes and 1 abstention.
Our next order of business is the review of the finance report. Jeremy.
Good morning. I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer. I'll be going over the results for August as well as year-to-date. With regard to our revenues, for August, we see farebox totals down about 1.6 million. As you may recall, August was a particularly wet month with a lot of rain, particularly over the Air and Water Show weekend, which depressed pay-per-use, and as well as the tourist passes of 1 and 3 days during that time period. So we see farebox totals down about 1.6 million. passes down about 400,000 for a total of about 2 million below budgeted expectations. The reduced fare subsidy is down by 50% as it has been since 2015, so we see 1.2 million below budgeted expectations for August, and non-fare box totals are on par. So overall, for the month of August, we see revenue total of 3.2 million below budgeted expectations. As we'll talk about on the expense side of the house, we continue to more than offset that, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. With regard to year-to-date revenues, we see similar trends on Farebox, where we were impacted by the polar vortex at the beginning of the year, as well as the most recent month on the wet weather. So we see that down about 9.5 million on a year-to-date basis. Passes, particularly the 30-day pass, continue to outperform budgeted expectations. So we see a positive 3.3 on that line. So overall, we're about 6 million below budgeted expectations with regard to fare and pass totals. Reduced fare subsidy, again, cut by half, and that is down about $9 million. Non-fare box totals, advertising, concessions, and the like are up almost $1 million, so we net out about 14 million below budgeted expectations for revenues. But again, we'll talk about how on a year-to-date basis, we more than offset that with our expense adjustments. On the expense side of the house, we have the various line items of labor, material, fuel, power, injuries and damages, security services, and other. We see positive favorability on these lines. Labor's up over $600,000 for the month, material over $1 million, fuel over $500,000. Power, injuries and damages, and security services are essentially flat. And then we see about $5.4 million favorability on the contracts line, which leads us to a total operating expense favorability of almost $8 million, $7.8 million for the month of August. If you net that against the drag on revenues, we see about $4.6 million of favorability, on the month of August revenues versus expenses on system-generated revenues. On a year-to-date basis, we see a similar trend where we see labor favorable over $2 million, material almost $5 million, fuel over $2 million, power over $500,000, injuries and damages essentially flat, and over $1 million of favorability on security services, and over 11.5 for other expenses, which are primarily contracts. That aggregates up to $22.8 million of favorability on our year-to-date expenses. If you offset that against the drag that we see on year-to-date revenues, we have a positive favorability of $8.5 million. So as we talked about the first half of the year where we saw negative number on the monthly reports because of the effect of the polar vortex, we dug out of that hole. And last month, we started accruing positive favorability on our system-generated revenues. We add to it this month, and those amounts will continue to offset the drag that we see on public funding, our sales tax, PTF, and real estate transfer taxes. And again, we feel like based on projections going through the end of the year, that we'll be again able to close out the budget as a balanced budget for 2019. With regard to the three commodities that we purchase, fuel, power, and natural gas, we're fully locked in for fuel for 19 and 20. We have made a lot of progress on fuel for 2021. We've been on a bit of a hiatus due to instability in the Middle East on finalizing that purchase, but we feel confident that we'll be able to lock in at low prices as things are trending back down. Power, we see that we're fully locked in through 2024, and natural gas will continue to look for opportunistic buy for the final purchases for those outer years as well.
Any questions?
Just one question. So we're already in October. I think it's October 10th. I should know. Just trying to think, what does the month of September sort of look like for us?
So we're still aggregating information on that. It will, again, we feel confident that we'll be able to accrue positive favorability for the coming months through the expense adjustments that we're doing. Again, we saw some, weather impacts and whatnot, and line cuts and things like that that we'll see through the remaining months for our revenues. But again, the expense controls and the assistance that we have from the departments, we feel confident that we'll be able to continue to close that public funding gap that we've talked about.
And Jimmy, I don't know if you got the number at hand, but in light of the fact that we're into the first quarter of the state's fiscal budget, and I know we were able to realize some revenue from the last session, do you know how much money we got in the first quarter from the state that we didn't get in FY 18?
So we have seen some continued pickup by the state with regard to additional, catch-up payments. We saw one payment, as you referenced, with regard to PTF, the public transportation funds that we received in August. We're getting indications that we should hopefully see some continued catch-up payments from the state on the PTF backlog, and we'll continue to keep the board apprised as those
So would
payments
you
come
say
in.
2 million, 3 million? The point I'm getting at is, as we try to go through the next few months, because ridership is a little bit less as you get into the winter months and the colder days, trying to see if that new revenue coming in, maybe the first or second quarter of the state's fiscal year, does that also help us in terms of making sure that we close?
It helps us on a cash flow basis. Since we've already budgeted those funds, it doesn't help us on a budgetary basis, but it definitely helps us on a cash flow basis. So we continue to work, as does the RTA, on working with the state on getting those past due payments trued up as quickly as possible.
Okay, and you might have shared this with the other board members, but I think you said on our briefing that we had a pretty good month in August or September in terms of the real estate transfer tax.
Yes, so as we talked about before, the real estate transfer tax throughout the year has been a little moribund. We saw that reverse in this prior month in August. So we saw a big uptick in the real estate transfer tax. And again, that 1 month doesn't make a trend, but knock on wood, hopefully we start seeing some continued progress with regard to the real estate transfer tax. You're starting to hear a little bit more rumblings with regard to commercial sales within the business district, which really helps move the needle on the real estate transfer tax.
Expect, the state, to pay you, what they owe you?
Yes, the state has been a good partner and continuing to provide us, additional, those true-up payments with regard to past due amounts on the PTF. We feel, confident that, as they continue to get their financial house in order, that will have a residual effect on the CTA in a positive way.
Any other questions?
So it has to do with the way that power providers and price their product vis-a-vis fuel and natural gas. Fuel doesn't typically in the marketplace go out very far, so they don't, because of the fact that there's so much instability, particularly in the Middle East as well as Venezuela. They have traditionally not gone out very far because of those events affecting pricing pretty substantially. So they tend that commodity in particular, fuel, as well as natural gas, which has a lot of regulatory issues that are continue to be explored. Don't go out as far as electricity does, and that's just kind of the nature of those products vis-a-vis power.
And the problem that they had in Arabia.
So you saw a substantial spike up in prices after the drone attack on
So
the
we
pipelines.
did all right, because
Yes. So we, because we are able to lock in and essentially at historically low prices for the predominant share of our oil and fuel needs, we continue to be insulated from most of that impact. So again, that's been very beneficial. Prices did spike up. You're starting to see those subside a little bit, and once they do, we'll make those final purchases for 2021.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing the purchase of cyber insurance coverage for policy year number 1st, 2019 through October 31st, 2020. Steve Wood.
Good morning. Steve Wood, Deputy General Counsel, Law Department.
Caroline Gallagher, your Chief of Strategy, Data, and Technology.
Welcome.
We're coming to the board for approval of a new cyber insurance policy. This will be an annual policy, if approved, that would renew every year, and the first term will be November 1, 2019 to October 31, 2020. Our insurance broker, Mesero and DBE Paradigm, marketed this new coverage to the insurance market. We received favorable offers from several companies, and we recommend proceeding with Beasley, which offered the best coverage at the lowest premium. The policy would provide an initial coverage limit of $5 million with a $100,000 deductible for an insurance premium annually of approximately $72,334. This insurance policy provides a number of protections for the CTA related to cyber attacks or intrusions of the CTA's computers and network. It will cover damages to the CTA resulting from wrongful release of confidential personal information, expenses incurred in notifying affected employees or customers of such a breach, attorney defense costs in any related litigation, the payment to third parties in a ransomware scenario, and certain business interruption expenses as well. And perhaps most importantly, it provides coverage for hiring forensic experts, attorneys, computer consultants that would help the CTA determine the severity and the root cause of the intrusion, and also help the CTA to determine what exact legal duties it has to comply with in response to that breach. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Have we had any breaches in CTA?
But I will look into this and follow up with more details.
Any questions?
This is previous insurance company that we dealt with. Beasley is the new one.
Beasley is the company that we are proposing to go with. They are based in London. They're an affiliate of Lloyd's of London. So a very reputable, well-known international insurance provider.
The existing.
This is a new policy. We do not have an existing cyber policy in place yet. This is for a new policy that would start November 1.
And just with regard to the question on breaches, to the extent that, this policy is really being used for the situation where someone hacks into our system and basically prevents us from providing service, right? When we have to call in a number of experts to help us possibly pay a ransom, the insurance will take care of all of that. We've not had any breaches like that. We've had what's called, phishing, where somebody will send like an email and try to get people to click on it, but no one's actually gotten into our system in a way that would interrupt or interfere with service. But this policy basically is the protection in addition to all of the other things that technology is doing. We have a cyber expert coming in to look at our whole system to ensure that we are as strong and tight of a system from a cyber perspective as we can be, and then the insurance is there as a backup should something happen.
Any other questions? If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item in the omnibus for approval?
So moved. Second.
Thank you very much. Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing the purchase of blanket railroad protective liability insurance, policy year November 1, 2019 through October 31st, 2020. Steve?
Thank you. Again, Steve Wood, CTA Law Department. We are coming to the board on this ordinance for approval of our blanket railroad protective insurance policy. This is an annual policy that the CTA has had in place for 10 years, and this ordinance is for the renewal term of November 1, 2019 to October 31, 2020. This blanket policy covers all CTA contractors and certain non-contractors who perform work within 50 feet of any CTA railroad right-of-way. The CTA enrolls these businesses in the program and allocates the cost of the insurance across the construction projects so that the CTA is not out of pocket for the cost of the insurance. Because the CTA purchases the policy, we're able to use our bargaining power in the marketplace to secure a much lower rate than individual contractors, DBEs, and non-contractors would be able to secure. Our insurance brokers, Mesero and DBE Paradigm, again, marketed the renewal of this annual policy to the insurance market, and the incumbent insurance provider, called Aspen Specialty Insurance, again, offered the best price for this renewal. The renewal rate is 19 cents per $100 of construction cost, and that is a 1 penny increase from last year's policy, which was 18 cents. That does represent about a 5% increase in the weighted average cost. Nonetheless, their rates are significantly below the competition in this area, and Aspen has provided good service and responsiveness, so we recommend renewal with this carrier. I'm happy to answer any questions.
We do this annually, right? Every year, okay, we redo the...
Yes, exactly. We've had this blanket policy for 10 years now, and it has provided a really tremendous way for us to kind of even out the marketplace with respect to larger versus smaller contractors and the cost of them obtaining insurance.
And the price of the insurance is going up?
The price of the insurance this year is going up 1 penny. Last year it was 18 cents. The year before it was also 18 cents. But going back 3 years, it was 22 cents per hundred, and 4 years it was 25 cents per hundred. So we've seen sort of a trend down. This might be the beginning of a trend up. Hopefully it'll be flat going forward. But this really depends on a lot of different factors out there in the marketplace.
Any other questions?
Steve, in FY19, did we have to use the policy?
So we have not had any claims in this year's policy, knock wood.
Okay.
We've only had one claim actually under this policy over the 10-year period, and it really came in handy for us. It was a third party that was installing fiber optic underneath one of our rails and hit a duct bank, sort of put a lot of the electronic equipment in that station out of business. We were able to come in. The insurance company stepped up, provided us with an advance on the claim. We're still resolving the final dollar amounts of that claim, but it has really been a great help for us in that area.
Steve, I might have missed it. What's our deductible before the insurance?
There is no deductible on this
Okay,
policy.
So perfect.
Right.
Questions? If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place these items on the omnibus for approval?
So move.
Second?
Thank you, Steve. Our final order of business is the review of 9 purchase and sales award recommendations. Presenter Ellen McCormick. Good morning.
Good morning.
Juan Pablo, good morning.
Morning.
Let's go for contract B1 through B4. Any questions?
In terms of, I see they're hitting a 60% DBE participation. Is that because, that's because the company itself is DBE?
Yes, Juan Pablo Prieto, Director of Diversity Programs. Yes, Chairman, the Prime is a DBE. It's a regular dealer, so under the regulations, they're awarded 60% credit on the dollars they receive.
Any questions, any other question for B1 through B4? Let's move to C1. Any questions? Question, let's move through F1 and F2. Any questions?
Ellen, could you just talk a little bit about F1?
Sure. We went out for a request for proposals. We received 4 proposals from Cigna, Mass Mutual, Metropolitan Life, Securian Life Insurance Company. And we looked at both the prices that were submitted and the policies that they were submitting. Mass Mutual is the only one that was able to provide all of the insurances that we were requiring. And we felt that that would be a benefit to the CTA and its employees. And then additionally, we are now adding long-term disability as a benefit, which we didn't have before. And I don't know if Tom has anything else he'd like to
Yeah,
add.
I think I just had a note here that additional benefits for non-bargain employees were now going to be available under the contract, but I didn't see them listed. And I was just wondering what are some of the new additional benefits that were going to become available?
Chairman, Tom McCone, Chief Administrative Officer. It's the long-term disability insurance that's available for purchase for non-bargaining employees that's now included in this contract and will be offered to non-bargaining employees beginning next year.
Let's move to contract number G1. Any questions? So let's move to contract H1. Any questions? Questions? If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place these 9 contracts on the omnibus for approval?
So moved. Second.
Since there is no further business to come before this committee, may I have a motion to recommend board approval of the omnibus?
So moved.
Second.
Have a second? Will the
Yes, been seconded, sir.
secretary call the roll, please?
Yes, Reverend Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Irvine,
Yes.
Mr. Peterson,
Yes.
Reverend Jakes,
Yes.
Chairman Silva.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 5 yes votes.
And finally, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
We're adjourned. And I think we're early, so I don't think it's 10 o'clock yet, is it?
9:48.
No, we got 12-minute break.
All right.
So no public comments because of?
Mr. Higgins, I don't know.
Okay. Would you go out and ask the front desk? Thanks. here? Nobody's here?
One speaker for Gregory there. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Hi. No, she's with a group that monitors, she's with the Workforce Development Group. So she comes to all the meetings. All right. Okay, all right. I will
There's
tell.
one right there. Yeah.
So Andrea Rita's here, okay. Four minutes. Four minutes. So far, there's only this person speaking. Should be quick. Okay, I'd like to ask everybody to please be seated. It's almost 10 o'clock. Sit right down, Ms. Reed. And just to remember to silence your cell phones, and if security or Andy could close that door, please. Thank you. Everybody, please be seated. Just make sure it's 10 o'clock. It's 10 o'clock? Yep. We're ready, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'd like to call to order the regular scheduled meeting of Chicago Transit Board for October 10th, 2019. Would the secretary call the roll?
Yes, Reverend Miller.
Here.
Director Irvine.
Here.
Judge Chevrolet.
Here.
Reverend Jakes. Director Silva.
Here.
Chairman Peterson.
Here.
Director Alvaro Rosales will not be here today. We have a quorum with 6 members of the board present, sir.
All right, thank you, Greg. The first order of business today is public comment.
Yes, yes, sir. We had 4 public comment speakers sign up. Mr. Robert Israel and Ms. Cynthia Allen are not here. Dr. Suhair Ibrahim emailed me earlier this morning. She cannot come here, but she asked me to read into the record her statement. But we do have Ms. Andrea Reed. And so with that, I would ask Ms. Reed to please state your name and address the board. Speak into the microphone. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Andrea Reed. I'm wearing 2 hats today. I am the co-chair for the Coalition for a Modern Metro Electric, also executive director for the Greater Roseland Chamber of Commerce. I have here that I would like to submit to the Assistant Secretary. Thank you. As a resident of Roseland, I am painfully aware that the South Side is underserved by public transit. Where the North Side has multiple rapid transit trains serving its communities, the South Side has only the Red Line south of 63rd Street, and it stops at 95th Street. We have fewer jobs on the South Side than residents who need jobs, and some of the most transit-dependent neighborhoods in the region. We need faster, more affordable ways to get to work, to grocery stores, to school. The Coalition for a Modern Metro Electric was formed several years ago to address the transit inequity. Our goal is to turn the Metro Electric into a rapid transit system and to integrate it seamlessly with CTA and PACE. Today, we have the opportunity to take an important step forward with the help of Cook County Department of Transportation. It is proposing a 3-year pilot project which will cover the cost of dropping Metro Electric and Rock Island fares to CTA levels in the city, of offering low-cost transfers between the CTA, Metro Electric, Rock Island, and PACE, and of adopting the Venture Card. We have broad community support for this, which I submitted signatures. Our coalition includes 19 organizations from churches to civic groups to chambers of commerce. In addition, our petition drive to publicize our campaign now has more than 550 signatures of support. Today, I am delivering these petitions to you. Chicago is a major metropolitan city. We urge the CTA to work with Metro to make the pilot project successful. The agency should stop competing for riders and work together to improve public transportation on the South Side. Working together, Metro and the CTA have the opportunity to make tremendous progress towards transit equity and toward improving the quality of life for those of us who live on the South Side and South suburbs. Taking steps to make transportation more equitable is a win for the city of Chicago. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. Appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Excuse me. Thank you, Ms. Reed. And it's my understanding that Robert Israel just came in. Sir, would you like to step up and address the board? Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning.
Good morning. Just wanted to follow up on the last time I was here. Just kind of trying to speak up on this RPM project. I know literally, I guess the train left the station because you had the groundbreaking the other day. I know they've been letting out contracts. I don't know. I signed a piece of paper this last time council. I don't know what I'm supposed to speak on, don't speak on. I don't represent no company. I don't have a contract with them, but I seem like I'm the complaint department when these people being mistreated by these contractors. And even I spoke with somebody in your staff to even try to reach out to one of the trade unions, local one. I think it's local one iron workers. They haven't been responsive. So I don't want to be like I'm coming down here and being a thorn in you guys' side, but I'm just, a lot of people, they just looking forward to be working. It's 60 cranes, all these billion-dollar projects, and just it seems like the people from our neighborhoods not working. Even the riders, I guess this is the riders' money, and I guess Barack Obama must have left $1 billion. So it seems like it's the people's money, but it seems like when these contractors get the money, it seems like they think it's their money, and they just give it to their family and friends, I guess. But I'm just coming here to remind you guys, I thought I was supposed to meet with somebody. I think you said someone's going to reach out to me. Never happened. Then someone else said they were going to reach out to Local 1. That guy's not responding, the president of that. Because I got iron workers looking to work, carpenters and laborers, and it just seemed like, I could say literally the train left the station, I understand. So I guess them guys got that $2 billion in their pocket and they're going to do what they want to do. But I'm just letting this board be aware. That's why I'm just going to keep coming. I go to every board. I don't want y'all to think I'm just picking on this board. I go to the tollway. I go to this PBC. And it's the same 6 or 7 contractors. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, I'm not here to just to be wasting my time and paying for parking. These guys, I'm really just trying to stop some of this violence. Violence need a job. If y'all watch the news, you know all this shooting going on. It's all going on the south and west sides. I mean, so I'm not trying to be too passionate to be upset, but it just somebody needs to reach out to somebody and tell them to share some of the wealth. That's all I'm saying.
Well, a couple of things. One, and I know if Dorval was here, he would speak to it. Check your phone. Called you twice yesterday. So look at your phone. I know you got 2 calls from CTA yesterday.
Correct. They thought it was JP. I called back. The young lady said it might have been Juan.
Okay,
I did call back.
And I think someone from Dorval's office called, but your voicemail was full.
Okay, that's true.
The other thing that I would say,
I'm getting so many calls from people complaining.
Well, it's a 5-year project.
Yes, sir.
So I know there are still additional opportunities. I think continuing to talk with Juan Pablo is helpful because he can share with you who all is working. I know it's something that Dorval gets reports on, and I get reports on in terms of women-owned businesses, African-American-owned businesses, Hispanic-owned businesses, people with disability-owned businesses. So we get reports in terms of who's on the project. But again, it's a 5-year project. I would also say this. If you've got contractors, DBEs, who are experiencing something working with primes, and I say this, Dorval and I have spoken to some of the DBE firms, don't wait. If there's an issue, get them to Juan. We can't do anything if they don't step forward. So I appreciate that you're that advocate. You can always come here. Don't feel like you're wasting our time. We want to know if there are issues that are going on.
Mm-hmm.
But if there are things that they're bringing to you, they need to get that to Juan so that we can take action on it. What I don't want to have happen is that at the end of the 5 years of the project, we start to hear issues now. We just broke ground on it. Work is getting started. So if issues are coming up, we need to get those issues. Tell them to put them in writing as well.
Right.
So you can get them to Dorval. Again, Juan, I know he did call you back. Is Juan in the room? Okay, I don't see him in the room right now. But again,
Well, I clear my voicemail, no problem. It's just I'm being inundated with calls, phones, emails, and I'm like, you know.
stay in touch with and bring the contractors to meet with them because
Okay.
again, if they've got issues, we want to know about those issues sooner than later.
Okay, well, that's why I'm coming here today.
Yep. All right.
I will clear my voicemail and look forward to whatever call.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Israel. Before I read this from Dr. Ibrahim, I do not believe that I've seen Cynthia Allen here, correct? Ms. Allen, are you here? No, maybe she just couldn't make it. So the last public comment speaker is Dr. Ibrahim. She sent me an email at 8:42 this morning and asked me to read it. Mr. Longini, please do read this note on my behalf in today's meeting. A note from Dr. Ibrahim, a customer who uses the CTA Blue Line and CTA buses. Hello, my name is Dr. Ibrahim. Please do forgive me for not attending the meeting. Even though I could not attend, I feel that my message should be heard. Dear managers, my complaints were resolved by wonderful, great, kind individuals that are managers and supervisors of the CTA. Today, my message to you is to give compliments to some great people of the CTA that I met on the phone. For example, Ms. Jeannie C. Alexander, Chicago Transit Authority, General Manager, Blue Pink Lines Rail Operations, is the kindest person I have ever met. There aren't enough words to express how I feel about Ms. Alexander. She cares, is attentive to my needs, listens, willing to take that extra step to help and resolve my issue. As you speak to Ms. Alexander, you feel that you are speaking to a mother, a sister, and a friend. She had a wonderful personality and great warmth that can't be described with words. When I had a problem with the conductor of a Blue Line, she called me once and she couldn't find me. Then she tried calling me again after another month of reporting the problem, calling me on another number, and then she finally found me. She listened to my problem, asked questions, investigated the issue, and did speak to the conductor about it. She told me that rest assured she will take care of this issue and get back to you. Ms. Alexander put the effort to resolve this issue and put the effort to make me feel safe and happy. Ms. Alexander is a great individual. Also, I wish to extend my gratitude to Ms. Passion, the lady or agent who took my complaint seriously when dialing 1-800-968-7282. Ms. Passion is also a great CTA agent. She does her job with care and passion. I am so grateful for having her as a CTA operator. That would be a phone operator. She took my complaint seriously, asked me questions, that is asking for detailed information of the incident or incidents, and did forward it to the right supervisor. Ms. Passion is a great individual, too, that we should recognize and be grateful to. Finally, I want to appreciate Mr. Longini for picking up the phone and inviting me to this meeting. He was concerned about my complaint and wanted to give me a chance to express my thoughts. Mr. Longini is a great individual, too. I should have just ignored that part. Again, please do accept my apology for not attending, as my diabetes controls my life. I do appreciate Mr. Longini for reading this note on my behalf. Thank you, Dr. Suhair Ibrahim. So that's the final public comment speaker for today, sir.
And
All
Greg,
right.
if I may, Ms. Jeannie Alexander is here in the room. She had planned to hopefully meet Dr. Ibrahim if she was able to attend. So I just wanted to point out, Jeannie, if you could just stand so board directors can see who you are.
Thank you, and Greg, you are a wonderful person.
Tell that to my wife.
He goes up and down, up and down. All right, thanks, Greg.
Sure.
The next order of business is the approval of the September 11, 2019 board minutes. The minutes were previously distributed. Any comments? Hearing none, I'll now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting of September 11, 2019.
So moved. Second.
Seconded. Reverend Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Irvine.
Yes.
Reverend Jakes.
Yes.
Mr. Silva.
Yes.
Chairman Peterson. Oh, I'm sorry. Judge is on this. Judge Chevrolet.
Abstain.
That's right. I knew there was an abstention somewhere. I got a little bit confused. That's right. So the minutes passed with 5 yes votes and 1 abstention by Judge Chevrolet. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Greg. The next order of business is a board matter. Board item number 4A. Given the absence of Director Rosales, may I have a motion to consider this ordinance with 3 separate votes?
So moved. Second.
So moved and seconded to consider it for 3. Reverend Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Irvine.
Yes.
Judge Chevrolet.
Yes.
Reverend Jakes.
Yes.
Director Silva.
Yes.
Chairman Peterson.
Yes.
That motion passes with 6 yes votes to consider it sequentially.
Okay. So on the first one, I'd like to ask for a motion fixing the salary of Judge Gloria Chevrolet as a temporary member of the Chicago Transit Board.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Reverend Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Irvine.
Yes.
Judge Chevrolet.
Abstain.
Reverend Jakes. Director Silva.
Yes.
Chairman Peterson.
Yes.
That motion to approve Judge Chevrolet's salary is approved with 5 yes votes and 1 abstention by Judge Chevrolet.
Thanks, Greg. I'd now like to consider a motion fixing the salary of Kevin Irvine as a member of the Chicago Transit Board.
So moved.
Second.
And seconded. Reverend Miller,
Yes.
Director Irvine,
Abstain.
Judge Chevrolet,
Yes.
Reverend Jakes,
Yes.
Director Silva,
Yes.
Chairman Peterson.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 5 yes votes and 1 abstention by Director Irvine.
All right, and finally, may I have a motion fixing the salary of Reverend Johnny Miller as a member of the Chicago Transit Authority Board?
So moved?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Reverend Miller,
Abstain.
Director Irvine,
Yes.
Judge Chevrolet,
Yes.
Reverend Jakes,
Yes.
Director Silva,
Yes.
Chairman Peterson.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 5 yes votes and 1 abstention by Director Miller.
All right, thanks, Greg. The next board item is 4B. May I have a motion approving an ordinance appointing members and chairs to certain standing committees of the Chicago Transit Board?
So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Reverend Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Irvine,
Yes.
Judge Chevrolet,
Yes.
Reverend Jakes,
Yes.
Director Silva,
Yes.
Chairman Peterson.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 6 yes votes and no abstention. And Chairman Peterson, I was just informed that Cynthia Allen, one of the public comment speakers, has now arrived. Would you like to have her come up and speak?
Yes.
Oh, yes, all right. Ms. Allen?
Good morning.
Good morning, Ms. Allen.
Sorry for my tardiness. I assumed that it started 10:30. That's what the asterisk stand for, but unfortunately I was wrong. Anyway, thanks for having me back as a writer of the CTA Transportation Services. And the purpose of my being back today is just to say that work is being done on the Blue Line, Harrison, Pulaski. Mr. Mooney and Mr. Bonds has been working diligently with the concerns that was addressed back on August the 14th, first initial meeting. Mr. Bonds had his people out there today on the platform, mopping down the platform, sweeping, what have you. And Mr. Mooney reached out to me via text that they will start preparing to put up installing new plexiglass along the, what do I call that? The ramp area. They're cutting it, and they should start as of tomorrow, which is October number 11. Other than that, and I just saw several mentally ill customers on the platform traveling today. So anyway, in conclusion, I just want to say that there is work to be done, but for some reason there's going to be some apprehensions. I just want to let everyone know my purpose of coming to the meeting is not to tell the Chicago Transit Authority how to spend their funding, but it was out of concern as advocacy for the travelers on that particular line. I think there is going to be some apprehension on some people that are here. I don't know, I'm just saying, that might feel that, who do I think I am coming before the board telling them how to spend their money? That was never my intention. My intention was just to beautify the platform, have a place that's clean, nice, like other platforms in the city of Chicago that is being ran by the Chicago Transit Authority. And I will keep the chairman and the, what would I call it? Chairman and
Board of Directors.
the board of directors posted as success is being done on that particular line, Blue Line, Harrison,
I see.
Blue Line, Harrison, Pulaski. Yeah, way too many words. And I want to thank you for having me here today, and I look forward to seeing you next month.
Thank you for taking your time to come down. And again, this is we like hearing about things, if they're moving forward, if there are issues. So feel free anytime to come down and continue to update the board as the work continues to progress. So
well,
great seeing you.
And
Yeah.
I want to echo that. Thank you. And also to say, it's not CTA's money. It's your money. It's my money. It's all of our money. And we make those decisions based on input from everybody. So we really appreciate when people that have a stake in the CTA weigh in on their perspective and, what they think we should be doing. So thank you.
Well, I received that. Thank you for that compliment. And again, I just thought it was the infrastructure money, and things are decided based on not about the ridership or the civilians, but it's decided based on what the board deemed necessary to use the funding for. So I just want to let everyone know that it was never my intention to open up a can of worms or to create any type of conflict or any of that. It was always pure, innocent nature.
And we
Just wanna
welcome
hear it.
those comments always.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Allen. And so that concludes the public comment section of today's board meeting.
Before I move on to the next item, a friend of mine walked in. I want to say to him that State Representative Louis Arroyo, you've missed the party. We've already celebrated the legacy and the history of our friend, Judge. Come on, no, come. That's why I said I see my good friend. Come on down. I know you wanted to say a few words, and we're glad you could take time out of your busy schedule. Yeah. Well, again, no, seriously, I do want you to come up. One of the things that I shared with the group, and I don't have to tell you the long history of Judge Chevrolet and what she has done in this city. Judge Gloria Chevrolet. And so we actually spent some time together yesterday, and I said you could sum up her 20, 30-some year plus public service career. But when she shared with me that she had worked all of her time, mostly at Harrison and Kedzie, at that branch, 51st and Wentworth, where I grew up. I told her I lived at 5329 South Prairie. I stayed at 4621 South Michigan, right across from the Rosenwald. So I know that area well, and that she had spent most of her career. So I actually challenged the audience to go and Google her and look her up, because again, when you start to talk about sheroes and standing on someone's shoulders, I wanted them to understand her history in this city and what she's meant to this city, but more importantly, the fact that while she could be retired, enjoying life, she's decided to continue to stay on the battlefield as a public servant. And the fact that, she's kind of come full circle in terms of serving on the board today, when back in the 80s, and Dorval was sharing this, that when he was first a staff attorney, he was assigned to work with her. So again, she's come full circle, and we're glad to have her on the board. So those were some of the comments that I added in terms of welcoming her to the board. But please feel free to come up and share a little bit of your history with the judge.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to thank the board, CTA, for accepting this prestigious judge. Judge, I'm honored to see you on this board. You're with a bunch of good people here. This board is doing a lot of good things. The president of this board, I stand up, I look up to Terry. We go back a lot of years. But Gloria, just a wise advice to you. You can't put people in jail in this. Can't put people in jail here.
I promise I will not hold anybody in contempt.
Okay. And if you see any of your board members with their pants slacking down a little bit, don't hold them in contempt, please. But Judge, it's an honor to come here today. That's why I'm here today, to see you behind this board. Because like Terry says, you have a heck of a career. A lot of years. You started with the CTA. And to come back and do a 360 and come back with Terry, I think you have a good relationship with him and Derville. A lot of good things are going to get done now in CTA. Not that they weren't done, because I think the CTA is kind of one of the nicer boards in transit. I talked to you guys last time, and I think you guys are doing a heck of a job. I want to thank you guys for what you do. Everybody's on this board, whoever knows me, whoever don't know me. Sometimes it's better not to know me. But my doors are always open to you guys. I have a direct line to Terry and Derville, and I think that you guys have been able to remodel a lot of these stations with no money. When there wasn't a budget, when there was no money, you guys came together and found money. I think Derbo brought a shopping bag from D.C. when he came, so he knows how to get money from D.C. and get things done when there is no money. Now, there's quite a bit of money for CTA, and CTA is going to do tremendous. Chicago is one of the most popular cities and states that I know of. I've been here for a long time, and I want to stay here. You know, so I think that mass transit is one of the most important things to be able to bring tourists to Chicago and to be able to bring people downtown Chicago, and you'll be able to help with that, Judge. So thank you. It's an honor to be in front of you. And again, don't hold me in contempt.
Thank you for those
Thank you,
kind
Terry.
words.
Well, before you go to, let me just thank you for continuing to be an advocate for transit and for our riders. And you said, I think I met you back 30 years almost. A lot younger. I had hair.
You had a little hair then.
Back then. But again, thank you for being a friend of transit and also one of our strongest advocates in Springfield. I really appreciate you taking time to come here and also welcome the judge to the board. We're excited to have her and look forward to working with her.
Thank you, Terry.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Arroyo, and thank you, for those of you that don't know, thank you very much for passing the $45 billion capital budget bill, of which we're going to get a few billion here at the CTA.
That's
Thank
right.
you.
Absolutely. The next order of business is a report from the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. Director Silva.
The Finance, Audit, and Budget Committee met earlier this morning. The committee approved the September 2019 committee minutes and reviewed the finance report. The committee also reviewed the following two ordinances: an ordinance authorizing the purchase of cyber insurance coverage for policy year November 1st to 2019 through October 31st, 2020. An ordinance authorizing the purchase of blanket railroad protective liability insurance for policy year November 1st, 2019 through October 31st, 2020. The committee also reviewed 9 purchase and sales award recommendations. The committee placed both ordinance and all 9 contracts on the omnibus and recommend board approval of the omnibus. That concludes my report, Chairman.
Thank you, Director Silva. May I now have a motion to approve the omnibus as stated by Director Silva?
So moved.
Second. Reverend Miller.
Yes.
Director Irvine.
Yes.
Judge Chevrolet.
Abstain.
Reverend Jakes.
Yes.
Director Silva.
Yes.
Chairman Peterson.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 5 yes votes and 1 abstention.
Thanks, Greg. The next order of business is the construction report, Bill.
Good morning. Bill Mooney, your Chief Infrastructure Officer, and with me today is
Chris Buchel, RPM Chief Officer.
Juan Pablo Prieto, Director of Diversity Programs.
So today I'll provide you an update as we do every month. We'll be starting with East Lake, Milwaukee, Illinois, our substation upgrade project. As I have been mentioning over the previous months, all the focus at this point remains at East Lake, where we continue the installation of the traction power equipment. This is the heavy industrial grade electrical equipment we use to manufacture our power for the trains. Here is in the first picture is an example of the exterior duct bank installation at East Lake. These ducts take the cables from the substation where we generate the power and ultimately connect it to the rails where the trains pick it up and also return back that path of power to the substation. This next picture shows you the demolition area of old rectifiers 2 and 3. Last month I gave you an image of those rectifiers in the process of being demolished. They've been actually cleared out at this point. Now this space will get prepped for the installation of the new lineup 2. So it'll be a transformer rectifier where we take the power from ComEd and convert it, the physical equipment that actually converts it to the 600 volt DC that we then distribute out to our network. As we've talked kind of on this project, there's a series of phasings where we eliminate one piece of equipment to make space for a new piece of equipment, and this is kind of this dance as we work around this active facility. So this is the space we created since last month, and it's in the process of being prepped as that equipment's starting to get installed. My next project update is our Your New Blue Signal project. Since we last met, we took upon one of the two significant major outages involved with this project, which were two 9-day line cuts. The first of which started September 27th and ended on October 7th. This was a very significant period of time where we cut service between Rosemont and O'Hare Airport, and we provided shuttle service that was matching our rail service intervals. So a huge amount of bus shuttle service to and from Rosemont to O'Hare, so customers could go about. And Chairman, and I'm sure you'll remember with the Red South and the significant cut we had there is the work really wasn't on the construction side. Our job was easy in the end of the day. The yeoman's work was done by Don Bonds and his team, and Brian Steele and his team, and the efforts they put forward and the amount of signage and customer information we put out there so our customers could path their way in and out of the airport and in and out of Rosemont. And that's kind of what you see in this first picture with O'Hare Station closed and the breadcrumb signage that Brian and his team put out there through both the baggage terminals as well as from our station so people could find their way to those shuttles. We had an immense amount of resources out on the ground there helping customers navigate that. Here's the shuttle service at Rosemont during the line cut. I think if anyone had experienced this, you would never have found in a moment where we didn't have at least a half dozen buses sitting there ready, waiting to take people. Nobody ever had an opportunity where they were not able to get that actual service and get moving. The work that Don and his team did and Brian did was just amazing. So I give them the yeoman's credit on that one. And here's an example of some of the work that was going on during that time frame. We were in the O'Hare subway replacing a series of direct fixation plates. These are the plates we use to secure the rail in the subway to the concrete. And here is, so we ended up installing, as you've seen on a bunch of these weekends, underground infrastructure. Now this area, because there's a series of interlockings associated with the yard and a bunch of other stuff, had a pretty significant underground infrastructure implication. So you can see how much of the right-of-way has been removed as part of this installation process and has been restored. And here we actually were creating, so we had a big culvert between our two tracks that we are actually provided drainage in and we started to level out. Ultimately, we'll be installing a series of relay houses on this land. So when we get it between the expressway medians, we get a little landlocked, and so we had to create some of our own real estate here. So. My next update's on our Lake South Main Line track improvement project, where we've been working predominantly on the lake line. Work has continued as planned with the renewal of the track in that area. This first set of photos shows you demolition of ties on the left. This is in the area of Clinton Station right outside here. And then in the photo on the right side of that screen shows you the installation of those new ties actually within Clinton Station proper. And then here they're doing some welding on the steel inside guard. That's the rails that go kind of, not the ones that the train runs on, but we actually run our negative current back through those rails as well as they're a safety feature of the structure. And the photo on the right shows some securing of the track plates with the railroad spikes, and they're driving down those spikes. Project remains on schedule and within budget. And my next project is our 95th Terminal Improvement Project, which I'm very excited to say that the last significant piece of infrastructure associated with this project is in service, which is escalator number 1. It is running at this point, and here's some of the final kind of preparatory work on that escalator where they're putting in the steel cladding. All that remains kind of at this point is detailed punch list work, and so this will be the last time you'll hear me reporting on this project. And kind of the last photos here of the striping. I've shown you a series of kind of rehabs up at street level of the street, so this is kind of the last finishing touch of that striping. So.
Since this is the last time the 95th Street Terminal Improvement Project will be in the construction report, I wanted to provide the board with a readout on the DBE participation. We set a 27% DBE goal on the contract. The contractor committed to the 27%, and through their awards, they awarded 30.05%, so they exceeded their DBE commitment. So we expect them to meet that 30.05% when the full payment is complete.
My next project is our electric in-bus route chargers, where the work has been focused on our Chicago Avenue bus garage and the new charging stations at Chicago Austin bus turnaround on the west side. These are ultimately a series of what we call slow depot chargers, which provide a longer-term trickle charge, and then a series of quick charging stations. The first picture here shows you the depot charger that was delivered to Chicago Avenue that will ultimately be where you'll be able to plug your bus in and charge it overnight. It's currently in the process of being installed and tested. And here's a picture of the substation walls being constructed at the Chicago Austin turnaround. We're ultimately building a mini substation there to provide that high charging, that 10-minute turnaround charging as the bus sits in queue. So And my last project today for you is Grand Chicago Division renovations. We currently are in a series of single track outages over the weekends to facilitate construction at Division Station, as well as we're backriding customers there, so our customers cannot gain access to the station northbound. They have to go to Damon and ride back on a southbound train. Over the first weekend of that work, we came in on the southbound tracks, demolished the topping slab at the platform level, completely removed it. It was what you see in this kind of first picture. And then they came in and started pouring new concrete for the new concrete platform structure and have smoothed it out, and it sets and cures for a period of time. And then they'll continue doing renovation work with new tile and everything else along that side of the platform, and then ultimately we'll flip in the upcoming weeks. And then we've been doing a series of work within the mezzanines of both Chicago and Grand, where they've been closing stairwells down for a period of time to renovate those individualized stairwells, as well as part of those mezzanines. So here's part of the work at the mezzanine where they had it closed, and they're in the process of flipping it over. So you can see that they've created a temporary CA booth there, as well as transferred over that fair equipment. And you can see the new tile on the backdrop there that they've installed, as well as the new flooring. And then here's one of the stairwells at Chicago that they've reopened at this point as part of that. So there's still finished work going on around that, new lighting, new ceiling accompaniments, but you can see the finished tile work, which is what most of the demolition and tile and floor during that closure was. With that, I'll turn it over to Chris.
So as 95th disappears from the construction report, the design build contract for RPM appears. This is the first time we're presenting this contract since its award in February. So I'm pleased to talk a little bit about some of the progress that's been made, and at the end to show some of the slides of the groundbreaking, which starts the construction of the project. So if we could go to the next slide, please. These are some details about the project. One thing to underline here, estimated number of jobs created, 1,400 and growing. We'll talk a little bit about our efforts relative to both DBE, building DBE capacity, as well as workforce development at the end of the presentation. But this is an important aspect of this slide. If we can go to the next one. Much of the work that's been done since the notice of award has been design work. You know, one of the things that is unique to this contract, and now Bill and others are using more and more, is that we heard a lot from the community in design build that the contractors were going to the easiest paths for DBE, which generally speaking were a number of different trades that would occur in the course of construction. And in some cases, DBE consultants were left out of this equation. So for this contract, we have not only a DBE participation for design, for construction, but also for design. So in the first aspects of this project, we've worked very hard on design. That is the major effort that's going on right now. Despite the fact we've started construction, there are a number of designers, including a number of DBE firms, that are working diligently producing over 300 packages that ultimately the contractor is letting for bid, and that we're working very closely with diversity and the contractor's team to make those available. Underlining your point, Chairman, about the continuing opportunities on this contract. It is 5 years. There are a number of rolling opportunities. In many ways, this project is a big project, but it's also being unbundled so that those opportunities can be made available to as broad a spectrum of subcontractors as possible.
So Chris, if I could just for one moment, because I wanted Bob to sort of, if you went back to the first slide, I think where you start to talk about the RPM. So you can see it's a $2 billion project, a little bit over $2 billion. You can see that only $1 billion, a little bit over $1 billion has been given out. You still have $1 billion. So in terms of the opportunities, over the next 5 years, there are opportunities for African American, Hispanic, women, individuals with disability. So I just wanted you to see this slide to be able to, it sort of reflects what I said earlier. We've got 5 years. Chris is working on the project. You're seeing here, you got questions about who's working on the project, when those opportunities are going to become available. Talk with Juan. You got to talk with Juan, talk with Chris, because this is what they do day in and day out in terms of just managing, you know, making sure that we, you know, and I consider all of these numbers here while we talk about our goals, we consider those goals to be the floor. That is the floor. And I think with most of the projects, at least since I've been here, those projects exceed what the goals are, and that's what we expect. And I would expect the same thing on this 5-year project. So, Chris, I just wanted to, I can't go back and forth, but you can talk with me, but I just wanted to just highlight this because I think it sort of speaks to if individuals are aware of individuals who want to participate, they got to get to you, Juan, they got to get to Chris, and we've got to figure out what are the opportunities so that they can engage in the process.
Yeah, if we keep going to, there we go. So this is a picture of the groundbreaking. I do want to underline something you said, Chairman, that, Juan Pablo and I talk almost daily on this project. His efforts are so integral to the success of it that we have folks from his office literally embedded within our project team, which is appropriate, unique to the CTA, but appropriate to a project of this size and complexity. So the groundbreaking did occur here. I know, Director Irvine, you're very interested in heavy equipment, so you'll be happy to see the drill rig behind all of the dignitaries, slightly bigger than the one we were talking about at Quincy maybe a year or so ago. So that was for a smaller micro pile. These are the big piles, or the caissons. A lot of this project is built around those. I've talked about them in the past, and I'll talk about them for a little bit while into the future.
Really old manhole covers too. So
Pardon me?
Really old manhole covers too.
I'll keep my eyes open.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you can see many of the components here. The big, those are the counterweights for the drill machine that is behind our dignitaries, and then to the left are some of the liners that go into the caissons. These caissons go 60 to 80 feet down and form the basis of our foundations for much of our construction. We can keep going. Much smaller rig. This is also something that's drilling into the ground, but it's really drilling into the ground to test for the soil content, the types of soil that are in the various layers. This enables us to engineer those caissons. How big are they? Are they 4 feet? Are they 8 feet in diameter? How much steel is in them, and so forth. This geotech process precedes the drilling of the larger caissons and is actually part of the design effort. So RPM advanced contracts, the demolition is complete and in closeout. There are some administrative things that are taking place, but really it's done. In terms of the advanced utilities, we are in that effort tight to budget and tight to schedule. I will say we've had a number of discovered conditions relative to AT&T, our communications work, and electric utility work, principally ComEd. Despite that, none of those issues really impact the larger project or the larger project budget. You can see some examples of some of the work here. At this point, we've done a lot of the heavy civil work, that is digging in the various duct banks and moving the utilities. Those are utilities that ultimately were in a space that we want to put structure into. So we see at this point on the removal of poles, it tends to be a little staged. We take the top off of the pole, that is owned by one utility, and then the bottom of the pole owned by another utility. So it has gotten, as much as real estate has gotten complicated in this city, rest assured the utilities have as well. And then you see on the right-hand side, this is a splicing activity. So it will continue for some period of time. And as you hear me talking about utilities and splicing, this is really kind of the equivalent of what Bill talks about punch list work. It will continue for some time with the utilities, but it does not have any real impact to construction of the larger project. And then our community outreach effort, which continues to be extensive, and a lot of our focus is socializing the project within the larger community, and that is not just a community that we're doing construction in, but it's also the community where opportunities are, particularly with regard to DBE and workforce development. You can see some of our more recent efforts on the community outlook. We are doing block by block efforts that continues as we go and really talk to specific neighbors about what their concerns are as various alley closures and other closures in their neighborhoods impact to businesses. So we continue to both keep the broad picture in mind as well as specific issues relative to various block by block areas throughout the project area. And I wanted to turn it over to Juan Pablo to talk a little bit about some of the really innovative workforce and SBDB activities that have occurred in this time period.
Thank you, Chris. So, Chairman, to your point, we are making sure to reach out to the communities because this is a 5-year long-term project. There are rolling opportunities. So in workforce, we continue to attend construction expos to talk to interested individuals about how they can get into the trade unions. and start working in construction jobs specifically on this project. We are coordinating with other city departments and sister agencies so that we can make sure to pool our resources, since we know that there's a lot of building going on in the city. On the SBE DBE side, we kicked off a building financial capacity program in September, early September, to help DBEs that are looking for access to capital. We realize that a lot of the labor and materials on this project are going to be high dollar value, and some DBEs need the working capital up front to be able to buy that material or to pay for that labor while the pay app works through the system and they get paid on that work. So this was part of Walsh Floor's commitment as part of their proposal, and then CTA has been working also to work through this, partnering with Walsh Floor. So we kicked off an event where we had 13 firms come in and hear about the opportunities to work with banks and funding sources, get some technical assistance, some back office assistance, so that when the pay apps start rolling, they know what paperwork they need to submit. If they need some technical assistance, they have that available as well.
Well, I have a question for you.
Yes.
How successful have you been in your efforts? Are there surveys created? Is there follow through?
So this first cohort, that building financial capacity, we're treating them like cohorts, so they're going through the cohort training now, and we'll follow up with them to see how it's going. So it's only been a month, but Walsh Floor has communicated back that 4 of those firms are what we call tier 1 firms, ready to bid and ready to get some access to capital. So they're putting in bids. As Chris said, a lot of the design work is still ahead of us, and packages are coming out slowly. So they're bidding on these packages, and we'll follow up with Walsh Floor to see if the firms that are going through this training are ending up competitive on those bids. And if they're not competitive, what services can we provide or can they provide to help them become competitive when that package is released again? Because Walsh Floor has committed to breaking up these packages, so it's not one concrete package, it's several concrete packages so that DBEs can have multiple bites at the apple.
Okay, so when the bid goes forward, and if they're unable to secure the bid, then Walsh will assist them?
Yes, Walsh Floor will provide some technical assistance through their one of their DBE subs that's doing her product is called Cap Build, capacity building. There's technical assistance there, and then we have other resources that we can point them to if they need other technical assistance. So we have it on both fronts.
In times past, how successful has that been? So do you have a group that you can say we have numbers where they've graduated bids, they've been successful, they've gained contracts?
Yeah, so we had a series in 2017 called our Green Line Small Business Educational Series, where we had 24 firms take 5 classes taught by our prime contractors about bidding with CTA, working on CTA, and a few of those firms ended up on CTA work, on the Green Line work that we had coming up, and on subsequent jobs as well. So we do know that this follow-up is a proven method, and we continue to improve on those classes. So we did have one for RPM that just ended. We had the graduation on October 4th. I believe we have a picture.
Yeah.
Yep. So this is the participants that went through the class. We had a graduation for them. We expanded this program. So like I said, in 2017, we had 5 courses. 2018 for Your New Blue, we also had 5. For RPM, we had 7 courses. And then we're planning on having another cohort go through for next year. So this is a continuing effort that we'll continue to improve on and make sure that we're meeting the DBEs where their needs are.
So I've got one question. This is probably a Brian Steele or Steve Mayberry question. So Bill, half of your report dealt with things unseen by the public's eye. The things that people most see are the buses, the trains, and the stations, because those are sort of the public-facing things. But it's interesting, and this gets back to why the $45 billion capital bill was so important. When you look, if you go through some of the duct work, the work again that's not seen. And I was just curious again, getting to Steve and Brian, how do we kind of get out to the public to work? You know, everybody see trains, that we get new trains, and we get new buses, if a station gets new artwork and get updated. But for those things that are not always seen by the public's eye, that goes on underground, because we're spending tens of millions of dollars in doing that kind of stuff, because those kind of things keeps the buses moving and the trains running. Do we have a way of communicating that through social media, some of this other work, again, that people wouldn't normally see who ride our system?
Yeah, good morning, Chairman, Directors. Brian Steele, VP of Communications and Marketing. We've been working very closely with the RPM team. My colleague Tammy Chase is the Director of Communications for the project. Greatly experienced and doing a fantastic job with Mr. Bushell and the team. To answer your question, yes, we are working to get the word out as much as we can. I've heard it said before that bad news travels everywhere, good news travels nowhere. And we've really taken that to heart, particularly with this project. It literally is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to make an investment of this nature in the project footprint. The good thing about the project footprint is obviously it's very dense, huge population, a lot of different constituencies, and as such, it has a lot of available communications channels, social media, community groups and organizations, elected officials' offices. There are a lot of smaller media publications, particularly online ones, that we have been utilizing since even before the project began. We see multiple opportunities. Basically, every time there's a milestone in the project, it's an opportunity for us to communicate it. So whether it be about the construction, whether it be about the graduation of the participants in the classes, like what you see on the screen. If you follow our social media channels, perhaps yesterday you had a chance to see a Instagram video that we put on that had a collection of photographs, and the big boring machine that Mr. Bushell referenced earlier, we actually have video of that making its first entry into the ground. So absolutely, Mr. Chairman and Directors, we do want to make sure that everyone is consistently updated about this project and knows not only about the construction, but about all the efforts that CTA is taking to promote the jobs, the opportunities, and how closely we're coordinating with all the communities.
That was really important. We were talking about this when Dorval talked about the outstanding capital needs. I think we forget this is a 100-year-old system, and that if you're not replacing a lot of the underground infrastructure and all of that, and more importantly, as Director Chevrolet said, you know, we're going to get a few billion of that $45 billion. But it's just so important, I think, today with the public to try to continue to push that information out. I mean, that's why, you know, Ms. Allen's showing up, talking about the work that's going on at the Harrison-Pulaski, you know, getting the public to know that, guess what, we're trying to be good stewards of the limited public resources that we have, and we're trying to make sure that all parts of the city are benefiting from those efforts. So that's why I wanted to just make sure it's great. I think the directors, we're all excited to see and hear, but we also got to make sure that the efforts cascade down throughout the community so that people do know of what we're trying to accomplish. And now that you've got the capital bill, we've got a pay-go, I think, as Jeremy refers to it, where we've got continuing funding every year, so we don't have to wait until a new capital bill. So again, all of those things are helping us. But again, for me, it's cascading it down throughout the communities in the city in terms of what we're trying to do to improve the service that we deliver to them every day. So, okay. Yes.
This is very impressive, obviously, the fact that you conducted these seminars and had this kind of an outreach. And I also know that the goals are also impressive, which is about, what, 30%?
On RPM, it's 20% design, 20% construction.
Now, when are we going to get some data indicating how much of that DBE goal has been set aside for the African American community, for the Hispanic community, the disabled community, veterans, etc., all of those protected classes that are entitled to share and participate in these contracts? When can we see that kind of thing?
So Wash Floor is letting out packages as we speak. As those packages are awarded, we'll compile which DBEs they're awarded to, and we can provide that on a monthly basis as we get that information on the workforce side as well. So for the DBE side and the workforce side as well.
Because then we'll see where we're being successful and where we need to do a little bit more.
Chairman Peterson, I just want to second the comments you made about getting the word out to the public, and I'm just wondering how feasible it would be to have brief announcements on some of the rail cars as they go through areas where work is being done. Maybe even if it's just a few sentences about what type of work is being done. So if if you're slowing down for some of that work, making sure we're educating the people on the train why that's happening. And I know it's asking the rail operator to do it is they've got a lot of work to do already. So maybe it could be like automated announcements, but.
Director Wren, among the communications channels we utilize are all of our in-house resources. Car cards, manual announcements, automated announcements, platform stations, et cetera. So that's certainly something that we can look to do and something that we've done on multiple large-scale capital projects before.
Thanks.
Additional questions for Bill, Juan, or Chris, or Steve? Not Steve, Brian. All right, okay. All right, hear none, thank you. Our next agenda item is new business. Greg, is there any new business?
No, there's no new business, but we should probably remind everybody that the next board meeting is kind of an odd one. It's the third Wednesday in the afternoon, November 20th. That's the next board meeting. And it's, you guys get shifted around because of the budget.
Yep, duly noted. With no further business to come before the board, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.